It's Natasha, it's your girl. I'm back with another episode of the YBF Politics, and that means I have another special guest, very special guest this time, from my home state of Louisiana, and also someone I've actually known personally since before he was, going viral on the internet, and before he was like Mr. It in the Louisiana State House of Representatives. So we are going to talk to him today about everything that we need to know about the state legislator and how they are going to protect our lives for us, because other people are not, child. They're not. So we're going to find out what they can do to help us with what we need and what we want as citizens and as constituents. And it's really just going to be an informative conversation, but, maybe a little personal stuff thrown in here and there. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Louisiana State Representative Ted James. Hello.
Hey, Natasha, how you doing? It's been too long.
It's been, I don't even remember how long, but it's been a minute. I've actually known Ted since college days, I guess.
Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I remember right out of law school, I would go and log in. The first thing I would do is look at the YBF for 30 minutes, and then it ends up being an hour of drowning in the YBF before getting to work. So I'm proud of you, sister, and
thank you.
We love you, and you make Louisiana proud.
Oh, thank you. And Ted is a double graduate of HBCUs, Southern University in Louisiana. And I would always run into you at certain, Congressional Black Caucus stuff. And just, some of my family members who are from Baton Rouge, who are also Greek. And also just people on my team that are Greek and went to Southern as well. We hear, we know the same thing, same people, same thing. So, and Ted has been doing some amazing work it's been 9 years now.
Yeah, it seemed like just yesterday.
I honestly remember you running the first time.
Yeah,
wow.
And now I'm the old guy on the block, the one. I'm the mentor now.
Right?
It's strange, yeah.
So you're not running for re-election because of term limits, right?
That's right. So this is the
last before we even get started, I need to know what you're gonna do next.
The jury is still out.
Is it?
I'm looking at a couple statewide seats in another 3 years. For me, Baton Rouge is home. We have a mayor's race going on this year. I'm not taking that off the table. So there are a few things I need to accomplish in the legislature before we decide what's next.
Yeah.
I'm not going away. I'll tell you that.
I figured that. Okay, so earlier this year, just a few months ago, actually, about 3 months ago, you went viral on the internet for something that you said, a whole speech actually that you said on the Louisiana State House floor about it was a bill actually, a bill that you were bringing to the table about police reform, generally speaking, but a little bit more specific as well. So what I want to talk about with you is really honestly how this came to be. I know how it came to be, but I want to hear from your voice and what you were really thinking. Because here's the thing. When I watch stuff like this, have you ever watched the European Parliament or other countries and how they come to blows in chambers?
Yeah.
I get why we have to have decorum. I get it. But sometimes you just be wanting to pop off. And I want to know if that's how you felt.
Look, if you, the prior to the video that went viral, you will see me, there was a guy that spoke, and you see me jump up, and I had to move out of the camera's view because I had to separate myself from him. You're from Louisiana.
Yes.
You know that we are in the very deep South. When I hear people in the Carolinas talking about they're from the South, I'm like, no.
You don't get it.
Louisiana is the South. So as we are dealing with, it's right after George Floyd and issues with police, mishandling killing of black people. Let's be real. We have folks that want to remind us, police officers get shot and killed all the time.
Even comparing apples to oranges. It was so weird.
Yeah. And when you look at the number of police officers, most of those are white. And so while we're debating issues around policing in the aftermath of George Floyd, one of my colleagues thought it was important to go down and educate us on the real numbers of police officers that are killed in the line of duty.
Right. So you were saying in your bill that African Americans are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than any other race, which is true. And 3 times is a rate, not the number. And he kind of conceded to that being the rate. But what he did, Representative Bacala, is that correct?
Yeah, Bacala.
Bacala? I should have known that, Bacala. What he tried to do was kind of flip the script and change the narrative of the conversation to show that, well, police actually are 40 times more likely to be killed, period, in the line of duty. 40 times more likely than Black people, 45 times more likely than white people, and just going on and on about this apples to oranges comparison. And it was shocking to me because it's like, well, what does that have to do with us trying to reform for the citizens who pay the police officers' bills who are getting killed? And I love what you said as soon as you got up there, like, it's not even about that. It's about the fact that, yes, when police officers are killed in the line of duty, actions are taken. You know what I'm saying? But when we're shot and killed, nothing happens at all. And you brought up the fact that he made it a felony to throw water at a police officer, which I didn't even know. So actions are taken.
Yeah.
But when we're murdered, crickets. So what were you like? I mean, obviously everything got passed, but I want to know like the status of what you're trying to do with that piece of legislation. What's the status now? But what were you feeling in that moment?
I was pissed off, and we had so many racially charged incidents. So in the video, I kept saying, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to do this. And so we had a conversation before. We had just taken down, we changed the name of the library at LSU because it was named after Confederate general. So we had folks on the opposite side that wanted to do resolutions to honor him in response to LSU taking it down. So all that week, we got the George Floyd stuff. We have the issue of the Confederate monuments. We had the issue of renaming a high school in Baton Rouge. So it was a lot of racially charged incidents. So for me, I had reluctantly agreed, like, hey, we're going to get this bill passed and we're going to go home. So a part of me, I was ready to have the conversation. But it pissed me off that he had just gone against his word, because we changed the wording of the bill. We have folks in Louisiana that say, oh, George Floyd wasn't killed in Louisiana, so let's not mention him. I'm like, in the speech, I said, we could name, thousands of names, hundreds of names, right? Yeah. Especially here in Louisiana with Alton Sterling and all the issues that we have. So for me, it was an education moment, because a lot of times those issues get swept under the rug because people don't want to have honest conversations. Exactly.
So what's the status of that piece of legislation now, and what will it accomplish?
So currently now we are having, we've divided the legislature up into 4 different subcommittees. So we're attacking policing from funding to training. And for me, my piece is looking at union agreements. We know right now in Louisiana, I'm a police officer. I kill somebody. The first thing is I'm granted a 48-hour cooling off period, right? Before I have to talk to my superior officer, to a district attorney. And we have a police officer bill of rights in Louisiana that says not only do I get 48 hours, I get 30 days before I have to answer. I have 30 days to find a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. There are way too many lawyers in Louisiana. It don't take 30 days to find a lawyer, right? But the police officer bill of rights gives officers 30 days in which you cannot question them. So we are attacking the police officer bill of rights, looking at different trainings, making it a crime if officers don't intervene. Like when you see the George Floyd incident, I'm more disturbed by the fact that officers just watched. And in New Orleans, which you know extremely well, there's an EPIC program where officers are trained to intervene. And if an officer is watching something and he does not intervene, he can be disciplined just as if he was the one that was abusing somebody's rights. So we're trying to make that statewide.
Love that. That's how it should be. And you're the vice chair of the Criminal Justice Committee, right?
Chair.
So, the chair.
Yeah. Bacala is the vice chair. So that's what I have to deal with. That's right.
Right. And so you gotta wait a minute now. I thought you were the vice chair. Well, that puts an even crazier spin on this. Sir, who did you think that you were coming up to this podium? Exactly. And it seemed as though y'all had already had this discussion that you were gonna leave I don't want to say scats out of this, but leave out the politics of it.
That's right.
And he kind of just, oh, you see how people be challenging us on the floor? And then for him to say also, which I found very interesting because this happens everywhere in every industry, he said, I'm not trying to cause drama. I'm not trying to cause an argument. Mm-hmm. That's not what I want right now. I mean, we can talk, but I want to have an open conversation, and we need to have a conversation. But you're going to have that conversation with me at my desk privately.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's the kind of stuff that irks me, because nothing that we're going to get done is going to get done if y'all keep acting like you want the conversation, but you just want to hide in private. And I just think that's really cool that you called that out. You talked about what he told. Was it him that told you that he had children of color, and that he was
another guy, Blake,
who had children of color, and he was concerned, but he didn't make that known to the court. Yeah, it's things like this that have to be called out so we can all be on one accord at some point. We're not angry black men. We're not angry black women. Y'all say things behind closed doors that y'all don't say to the public, and then y'all act brand new when it becomes public. So I love that you called it out. Thank you for not being scared.
Look, he wasn't happy that I told the whole state that he had children of color either. So yeah, he has received some emails on that. Like the Republican, they didn't know he had children of color.
I love it. And this actually, which you did actually came right after Cedric Richmond had to pop off on somebody very similarly. And I know that y'all are cool too. So I just thought this was hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your feelings on qualified immunity? You kind of touched on it in the bill as well. And you were saying that you do already kind of have something that prevents people from moving to a different parish and a different parish. And by the way, for those of you not from Louisiana, parishes are the same things as counties, okay? Right. Don't be asking me what it means.
Yeah.
And so moving from parish to parish if they get fired from one. But the issue is that the police union, which I know the one here in New York is crazy, so I'm sure it's crazy everywhere. They end up some kind of way overriding it and getting them into position in another parish. So what can be done about this?
So we, every state has some type of licensure that a police officer goes through. So in Louisiana, it's called post. We have the laws on the books that says that a police officer, if they're convicted, then they lose their post certification. So they could never be a police officer. It's like you get a DWI, you lose your driver's license, right? The problem is police officers don't get charged to the point where they could ever get convicted. So the charge and the challenge for state legislators across the country is to find ways to revoke that license to be a police officer, because they're not getting charged, so they're never going to be convicted. So we have to make sure that, a certain number of excessive force complaints, right? Disciplinary records, no matter if, because what we're finding is we have folks that have a long list of disciplinary complaints before they kill someone, right? We had an article that just came out today that the guy that killed Alton Sterling, he had 16 different issues before he ended up killing. And, like a black grandmother, if you lie, you'll steal. If you steal, you'll kill. So this guy had a issue and a record of abusing his power and then ended up killing somebody. So we have to attack those. And that's what state legislatures should be doing across the country.
Love it. And I love that Louisiana, one of the main places that should be attacking this is. So I appreciate that. Well, you know what, since we kind of talked about that, you're not going to be here next session, but these things are things that need to be carried on from session to session to session to session. Who would you feel comfortable with? I don't know if there's somebody that you're endorsing or promoting or that you have your eye on. Who should we, the voter, be looking at to keep up the things that you've started and you've put into action? Who's going to carry that torch that we should be putting into office?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was the one, I guess blessed or lucky enough to go viral, but we have Edmund Jordan, he's a state rep in Baton Rouge. He has, I think, another 2 terms. Royce Duplessis, who's out of New Orleans. Howard Grad, he's a lawyer, he worked for the Supreme Court. Those guys work lockstep. You mentioned qualified immunity. Edmund Jordan, he's a lawyer as well, so he litigates. He sues police officers, so he knows the issue very well. So those 2 guys will, of course, be carrying the torch long after I'm gone, to make sure that we continue to keep pushing the envelope on these issues.
Is anybody that's up for re-election that we need to be contributing to their campaign? What needs to happen?
Look, not right now. Y'all can contribute to mine because I'm running for something else. But right now, I think we're in pretty good shape in Louisiana. Okay. We had elections last year, so we're still in the first year of the term. There are a lot of local elections. One of the things that we don't talk about enough, district attorneys. Historically, Black folks don't want to be DAs, but don't recognize how important it is to have a Black person look at the file and decide not to prosecute. And there's a guy, Jason Williams, who's running for district attorney in New Orleans. People know him. He was Boosie's lawyer when Boosie was free. So people, they equate him to Boosie. And folks are like, oh, well, if you free Boosie, then, I'm going to donate a vote for you. So this guy is, he's the real deal.
Speaking of district attorneys and attorney generals, you were a supporter of Kamala Harris.
That's right.
Early on.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us why. But definitely because of what you just said. We want somebody that looks like us in some way, shape, or form in that position. But for some reason, people, I don't know, it's like they side-eye that too. So what do you say to these people? Why were you supportive?
Look, I'll tell you, I had the opportunity to meet with 4 presidential candidates. One who, I was a Cory Booker fan for the longest. I met with Senator Harris. She was here for an AKA convention, and she called and wanted to meet with me. She said, hey, I got 5 minutes. I want to meet with you before I take the stage. 30 minutes later, I felt like I was sitting there with my high school guidance counselor, right? I felt like this woman, I could see her heart. And she talked about her trajectory. Like, folks want to focus on the 4 or 5 negative things that folks have brought out when she was a prosecutor. She talked about all of the charges that she didn't file. She talked about the expungement programs that she led. She talked about the intervention and the pretrial programs. And that's where the rubber meets the road. When you have somebody that's going to look at a file and recognize that, yes, this person may have broken into Best Buy and went out and stole some things to sell, but not the fact that this guy's a single parent, right? He's taking care of his grandmother. He lost his job, and he's trying to steal some things to sell to provide for his family. Not that that's an excuse, but we know that, folks, I'm a parent. If something happens to my child, I'm going to beg, borrow, and steal to make sure that I can provide for my child. Right. So you have that compassion on the other side as a prosecutor. That's important. And for me, raising a Black girl, I had a 3-year-old little girl. Who am I not to support the Black woman, right? I almost felt embarrassed for thinking about supporting anybody else. But for me, it was just the opportunity to really sit down with her, comparing her to the other candidates. I felt something inside of her. I could feel how serious she was about running for president and issues facing the Black community.
Absolutely. And I wish that people would look at it like that versus wanting this perfect image, I guess. You're not going to have anybody perfect, especially a lawyer. It's just not going to be perfect.
That's right.
But we make concessions for everybody else except for ourselves.
Exactly. So, Democrats, we want to fall in love, and Republicans just fall in line.
Exactly.
And, and it's problematic because I'm spending a lot of time educating folks on why they should support Senator Harris and Joe Biden versus President Trump. And if you turn on the TV, that's all the proof you need, right? But like you said, we need that pristine, we still had this Obama hangover.
Right.
And folks are looking for that.
And there's people that still weren't impressed by him.
That's true. Because he wasn't Black enough at first.
You just want to be able to please everybody, Cheryl. It is what it is.
That's right.
So speaking of Trump, all right, so early voting and mail-in, absentee mail-in, whatever you want to call it, voting has started in Louisiana already. My parents voted mail-in this morning. They actually physically took the mail-in ballot to the drop-off spot, which is like the parish, not the county office, but basically the parish office, parish election office or whatever. They physically brought it in. So this has already started. It's already underway.
That's right.
But what we're seeing now today is Trump basically slanderizing the FBI and still the USPS. And it's really convenient if y'all really look at this. And I guess what my concern is, wondering what will states do and state legislators do to, you can't stop him from doing what he's doing and what he's saying, but if it comes down to actual action being taken, what can state legislators do to protect us, the voters, to make sure that that postal chiefs and councilmen and mayors and even governors, which I don't think Bell Edwards ever would comply with anything he's saying, but just in case, what can state legislators do to protect us from people like that give in to any whim that Trump has to stop the mail-in voting?
You know, for us, legislators should be trying to expand mail-in voting to anybody, especially during this pandemic, right? When legislation doesn't work, you got to sue. In Louisiana, our Secretary of State tried to limit mail-in. He tried to cut early voting. He was sued. We won, and now we have extended early voting, extended mail-in ballots. And for us, it's making sure that we hold these folks, making them feel accountable, right? Yeah. Earlier this year, you know, your parents are blessed because earlier this year, when the Secretary of State was supposed to mail out invitations to vote, mail in to over 600,000, he only mailed them out to 300,000. And in that 300,000 missing, they were Democrats, they were young people, they were Black people, folks that would lean to vote Democratic. So, you know, we have to make sure we're asking those questions. We have to keep, you know, calling folks to the table, asking for reports, asking for, you know, deadlines. The other day was National Voting Day. Yeah. Our website was down. Our Republican Secretary
I brought up that tweet that you posted. You were like, I mean, you just popped off talking about how is it down for voter registration when this is voter registration day. Yeah. And you feel like it was intentional.
Oh, it was definitely intentional. You know, this guy, like I said, earlier this year, he only mailed 300,000 out of 600,000. He purposefully tried to limit voting and and, you know, and is pushing voter suppression until he got sued. So for him to shut down the website, you know, fool me once, right? You know the lyric, right? This guy is purposefully trying to, you know, steal this election. And the problem is, you know, I hear from people all the time when you hear issues with the FBI, the U.S. Postal Service, Secretary of State, you know, dudes that I get my haircut with, man, my vote don't count. They're going to steal it anyway. Right. So we have to work extremely hard to make sure folks feel comfortable. And that's why I push information out there, like to remind people, if your vote wasn't important, folks wouldn't be working so hard to steal it. Right. And the more that we do that, I think folks are going to really get excited about getting this guy out of office.
And just a reminder to everyone, it was said this morning that the mail-in requests, because not every state automatically mails. I think 48 million were automatically done. Another, I think they said 30, I wrote it down, but 30 something million have been requested. And it is, I mean, that's just a record of requested mail-in ballots. Mm-hmm. But of those requested mail-in ballots, it's a 2-to-1 ratio, Democrat to Republican, of who's requesting. Mm-hmm. Now, this is exactly why Trump has an issue. And he always knew this was going to be the case. Right. And this is why it's, you know, defame everybody so that you can set up the platform, set up the stage to contest this. Mm-hmm. So that brings me to contested elections and the foolishness that could happen after the election. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, you know, like it's been a rough week. You know, we done lost RBG. We done lost a lot. Yeah. And I think that was one of those last nails in the coffin that could have protected us if something went down on November 4th. Mm-hmm. So what do we do? And what role will state legislators have if Trump literally follows through on what he threatened to say when he said, there may not be a peaceful transfer of power?
Mm-hmm. Look, I mean, for us, it's making sure that we are pushing election security in our state. You know, Louisiana traditionally goes Republican. We only have 7 electoral votes, but I'm not conceding this election. And, you know, a 7 here or 5 here or 6 there, every electoral vote is important. So the legislators just have to make sure that you're protecting the integrity of the elections in your state. If you have a Democratic Secretary of State, I think you're in good shape. for us, we're going to sue them. We're going to make sure that we're getting information early. I tell folks all the time, drop off like you say, a request, and you got to know depending on what state you're in. Here, you have to make the request unless you are in certain categories. Right. Make sure you're making the request timely. Make sure, like your parents, if you are capable, if you have the ability to drop off as opposed to just putting it in the mail. Bring them to the registrar of voters, and then that way, in a week or so, you can confirm that your vote has been received. And I always tell people, vote early. That way, on election day, you can be on the phone calling people, reminding folks to vote. You don't have to worry about the long lines, because in Louisiana, we have a 10-day early voting period, and on election day, so you got 11 days to vote. Vote early. Legislators across the country, in partnership with a lot of organizations here. We have, of course, the NAACP, but in Louisiana, we had a Power Coalition, which is a new group, and they are founded just to identify voters of color who've been inactive. And in the last race, you mentioned Governor Edwards, they contacted 1.4 million African-American inactive voters in the last election, and we saw a record turnout. So we're hoping to see that again this year.
All right. The Virginia Attorney General said he's already starting the conversation to, explore legal pushes after this election. And he said it's the first time in history they've ever had to do that, to have that concern. So everybody needs to be concerned, but that's why we do what you just said, vote early, so we can start being on it November 3rd, being on everybody's ass about it. All right, so COVID is here, but not everyone knows that, apparently, because y'all, not you, but y'all out here partying, y'all at the club, y'all still hosting stuff. Y'all still having baby showers, and y'all still setting forests on fire with gender reveals.
That's right.
Like, what is going on? So today, there are 7 million cases of COVID in the United States, over 200,000 deaths. All over the world, the numbers are rising. US, they just officially said today, ours are too again, overall. What needs to happen? You went through this in March. Like, what needs to happen?
Look, I'll tell you, the first thing folks, especially in your audience, need to recognize, I spent 5 days in the hospital with COVID, right? Just because you are young and active, you can still get this virus, right? It can still knock you out. One of the things that in Louisiana, we have the highest number of cases per capita. Small Louisiana, highest number of cases per capita. Because folks still, in New Orleans, they still want to go to a second line. They still want to hang out. And folks think that just because I'm hanging out with my friends, we can't contract this virus. But your friends are hanging out with other folks. Your friends are going to work. Your friends are going to the gym. Your friends are doing all these different things. Folks are still going to hookah bars. That is the one thing that I just do not understand. For us, African Americans, we have the highest death rate with COVID, right? Like that in and of itself should warn people to calm down. But it's simple. Like the more we open, the more we convene, it's easier to spread the virus. Like football season is coming. Football, it's much better to watch football on your TV than to be in the stands. And LSU football, that's unfortunately, everybody here know national champions. Folks are more concerned about LSU football than where their kids are going to go to school.
Well, that's because of what the football players look like, and we all know that.
Most definitely, right? And it's good for them to go and run and jump and catch and throw, but don't march, don't protest.
How dare you?
Look, and if I had a kid, a 5-star athlete, he'd be right at Southern at the HBCU. Right, I would not allow my kid to go to one of these. So
the SWAC division is not going to do anything football wide, because I know Pac-10, was it Pac-10 or Pac-12? One of them just announced today that they're going to go back on their word and say, oh no, let's do a 6 or 7 game season anyway.
That's right.
But you're saying that HBCUs are not.
Yeah, we aren't playing until the spring. And that's again, one of the things. When you talk about just the testing, right? For me, I was one of those early positive cases back when folks were saying, "Oh, if you don't have symptoms, don't go get a test." But for me being Representative James, I probably would have been turned around because I know other young African American males that were told, "Hey, you have allergies, you just have a cold. We're not administering a test." And with those, like LSU is spending millions and millions of dollars testing those student athletes. Even if HBCUs wanted to, we don't have the resources to make sure that we're adequately protecting our young people with, and it's not just the test, but you have to contract with a lab that's going to make sure they can turn around those tests quickly. So folks are really thinking that just because a bar is open, that don't mean you have to go, right? Just because we are open in capacity, that doesn't mean that you have to be one of those folks, one of those individuals that will fill a seat, because the virus is still here. People talk about, remember when we were quarantined, and remember coronavirus, it's still here.
Very much here. Okay, here's the last question I'm gonna ask about COVID because it's so depressing. But okay, so Senator Cassidy, U.S. Senator from Louisiana, Cassidy is a physician, okay? And it's just, I don't understand, but whatever. He's a physician, and he's sitting by and allowing the absolute foolishness to be happening in his own state to his own constituents when he knows better. He definitely knows better. And I'm sure it's, politics and party lines and things like that. He is a staunch Republican. But at what point do you hold people like that accountable and say your expertise is why we elected you here, and not necessarily only your party? So what do people like you who are in the state legislature, how can you, like, if my senator isn't listening to me, and I'm a Louisiana resident, but I was like, okay, I also live in East Baton Rouge Parish, so I'm gonna come talk to Representative James instead. Like, is that what we should do? Like, what do people do?
Look, I'll tell you, find somebody that's gonna listen to you. And for us, it's funny. I passed his house today, and I know that there are folks that are planning a protest outside of his house. The ironic thing is, not only is he a physician, he was one that didn't want to wear a mask, and then he got COVID. Right. And this guy, you have to make sure that you are reaching out to these folks, flood their email, flood their office, call, and then show up. Like right now, he's up for re-election. There's a young brother, the mayor of Shreveport, Adrian Perkins, who's running. President Obama just endorsed him today. So we got to get these folks out. And the sad thing about Senator Cassidy, when he was Dr. Cassidy, not only is he a physician, but he made his living in the charity hospital system, taking care of the working poor. And now he's gone to the United States Senate and worked against the very nature of, his whole existence as a physician, because he's not brave enough to be, somebody that's going to stand up and be mature. He's just going to follow the president lockstep. So in those folks, you blow their offices up, and then blow their offices up with emails and phone calls. Then specific, right? In this time, and make sure that you're pushing the issue. And then those folks that are up for re-election, we got to get them out. And you brought him up. It doesn't matter if Kamala and Joe wins if we don't flip the Senate, right? Because we still see gridlock. So, remember, if your senator is up, we have to be just as excited about getting that person out as we are about getting Trump out.
Adrian Perkins, y'all go donate. Y'all go do what you got to do to get him there instead of Cassidy. All right. So you went to an HBCU. I want to know how you feel about the promises that Kamala and Joe have made about not donating, but allocating resources to HBCUs, and also the whole idea of paying back student loans to HBCUs. Now, listen, I went to a PWI. I'm black though. I feel some kind of way, but whatever.
Look, but I think she needs to amend it to include the Divine Nine too. That lumps you in.
There we go.
Then you in. Right. But look, for me, I'm excited about it, and it is, and you see these billionaires that invest in HBCUs, and no disrespect to the other ones, but they always pick the same ones, right? It's always the Howards, the Morehouse, the Spelmans, and there are other HBCUs that seek to benefit, and that's one of the tragedies about the Trump administration and his lies. He keeps talking about, I've been great for HBCUs. Dude, no, you haven't, right? My Southern University is not doing any better with you as president. But, you know, being able to relieve that debt for HBCU graduates, and we're going to throw in the Divine Nine. We're going to have a conversation with her to make sure that we cover everybody.
She's a member of as well. Let's make this
That's
happen.
right. That's right. So, I mean, it's important that folks are, you know, are going to be able to you know, relieve that debt, and then that money will go right back into the economy. Home ownership will go up. You know, HBCU grads are going to be able to have, you know, more resources to send their students, send their kids to HBCUs. But when we talk about just the investments, like one of the things that I'm excited about at Southern and LSU are the only colleges in the world that grow marijuana, right? That is a huge recruitment tool for an HBCU when we pass the medical marijuana. So our medical marijuana program in Louisiana, when we passed the legislation, only 2 entities can grow, and that's LSU Ag Center and Southern Ag Center. So what we've been working on is creating degree programs, because there's so much that you can learn just about the cultivation of the plant. Like most folks think that, and hemp as well, most folks in Louisiana, you know, a lot of farmers, just because you have land, that does not mean you could go and cultivate and grow hemp. So the Ag Center at LSU and Southern, they are working to really educate people. And these investments in the HBCUs can help Southern grow and cultivate that program as a leader in the South in this growing industry, because we know Louisiana will probably be last to legalize marijuana, but we have folks that are coming from all over the country to learn how to do it at Southern University. So those investments will just help in different engineering programs, the business school at FAMU, right? It's always been a huge recruitment tool for folks that wanted to go into business to go to FAM. Xavier with, you know, if you want to be a doctor or a pharmacist, you want to Xavier. It's just going to help to continue to produce Black professionals in all these different industries.
So the presidents of Xavier and Dillard, both based in New Orleans, wrote a letter to students and the HBCU families of theirs to let them know that they had started trials and they had started participation in trials for the COVID vaccine. So it was weird, because when they wrote their letter, you know, I saw a certain type of response. You know, some Black people were like, oh, that's amazing. Like, I mean, now I kind of trust it if my own president is participating, and waited a few weeks before he told me. Then I saw people like, oh, what they trying to use our own people against us? Now it's the Tuskegee experiment all over again with our own people. And you hear Trump talk about, we want to get to HBCU students and Black people, So the thing about this is, with any type of vaccination or any type of medical trial, you have to have a diverse pool of trial participants, because you wouldn't have all men, you know, you wouldn't have all women, you wouldn't have everybody being 16. There has to be a diverse pool to make sure it works for everyone, because we do have certain different biological things about us, not more inferior, not more superior, just different. So how do you, as an HBCU grad, like, how do you feel about it?
Look, so Representative James, right? just like you said, I know that this is not going to be successful if we don't have a diverse pool of individuals that are willing to put themselves out there and get into this trial. For me, I ain't got it, right? Like Ted ain't doing it, right? I'm gonna wait until like round 3, right? So I think that, you know, I know the Dr. Kimbrough at Dillard really well. Like he is that person that cares so much, that is the staunch supporter of everything around the Black experience, not just higher ed. So for him to do that, he understands the importance of participating. Now, I'm gonna have to see like some Black doctors around the table.
I agree with that.
You know, and that way, it gives me the level of comfort that we're not dealing with some type of Tuskegee experiment, because folks feel like we are, we're not valid. We're not valuable and we're dispensable. So I would be extremely concerned. So, and I know Dr. Kimbrough well enough to know that he had to have a level of comfort. But like you said, some folks are going to have to be the brave ones out there to go and do it. And I think that, you know, as a community, I love us sometimes. I mean, I love us all the time, but like in that, the diversity, and I saw a lot of the, you know, memes floating around about Dr. Kimbrough. But, you know, for us, that fear,
it's
a
real.
lot of times our fear comes out in humor, right?
Yes.
You know, so we have to just be very, very, very focused on, you know, the end result and not be, you know, so concerned about this being another attack on us. You know, the Secretary of Department of Health in Louisiana is a sister. You know, Courtney Phillips is a phenomenal leader in this space, and you know, I go to her. So we have to be able to go to some, you know, folks of color, Black people that we support and trust, and you know, she seems to be one that is you know, more optimistic about the future.
And I always tell people, if you have an issue with doctors and medicine, because, you know, Black people be side on everybody, especially doctors. And that's part of the reason why we're more heavily affected when things happen. It's an understandable side eye, but at some point you have to manage to help yourself. And what I always tell people is find a Black doctor. That's all I can tell you. I didn't know it was that hard to find one. There's plenty of doctors in my family. My mom's a doctor. There's plenty of my family. So I didn't know that it wasn't like a typical thing. I get that it's not always super easy, but that's what y'all look up everything else on the internet. Everything else. Find it. Look, and if not in your what do you call it? Your insurance circle, then you just got to come out of pocket once or twice.
Look, and that's one of the things that we need to be focused on. When you look at Medicaid dollars, we have to be pushing, and those folks in Congress have to be pushing and make sure specialists take Medicaid patients. See, a lot of times we got some Black doctors that get up and they don't want to see Medicaid patients, right? And a lot of it is because the reimbursement rates aren't there for specialized physicians. So when we talk about dealing with those underlying conditions that made us, you know, like just open season on Black people with COVID, you got to make sure that we are providing those doctors resources so they can see those patients. And then for us, we got to realize that the emergency room is not primary care. Right. And, you know, you said if somebody moves here, you know, I teach sometimes at Southern, and, you know, my students know what the women know the best nail salon because they get on the phone and they go to Yelp, they go to Instagram, they do all that. We have to be the same way about our health and finding, you know, physicians of color. And then we got to stop thinking that the white man has cold to ice. And, you know, for me, I'm a lawyer, and I get folks that call me when they get a traffic ticket. And, you know, they get a warrant like, hey, help me with this warrant or help me with this ticket. But then when they get a big case, they go and call a white lawyer, right? And you have to employ that same trust in your people with a physician because they understand just, you know, our background, they understand the history, and they're more sensitive to our plight.
Yep. I 100% agree with that. And that crosses every industry line.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Whew, Lord knows it does in journalism. All right. So, speaking of journalism, I have a question for you. Did Tory Lanez shoot Meg Thee Stallion?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yes. Thank you. Do you see the foolishness that is happening on Facebook and Twitter today?
He did it.
What are y'all talking about? This man came out with an album that basically only talks about Meg and the women mainly that went against him when there was plenty of men that did too.
Yeah, he did it.
What?
Look, I'm Team Meg.
All right, good. That's all I need to hear. Because you talked earlier about how men just, I don't want to say y'all ain't ish, but men, y'all,
He's still working on us.
I'm at a loss, but I appreciate that I've seen so many more men speak up this time.
Oh, no, he did it. Yeah.
I mean, who else? The gunshot itself? It just fired itself?
He's guilty.
Whatever. All right. So we know who you are endorsing for the upcoming election, and that's not just in the state, but also for the U.S. Senate and things like that. Thankfully, the governor is not up for re-election, so we are good on that. And we don't know your next steps yet, but You better tell us
Yeah, just keep me
at some point.
on your list of folks to, give me an audience with your followers. When we make a
Mhm.
decision, you will be amongst the first to know.
All
Yeah,
right, all right. So,
yeah.
what are the last things that you want to make sure your constituents and people that aren't even your constituents, but it would be beneficial for them to know? What should they know right now?
I'll tell you the most important thing. We talk a lot about the election, but the most important thing facing Black folks right now is the census. Right? We
Yeah.
have to make sure that we complete the census forms. Look, if you have a warrant, the police not coming to your house. If grandmama is taking care of your babies and grandmama lives in public housing, nobody's gonna come kick your grandmother out. The census is how you get your tax dollars returned back to your community. Period.
Yeah.
Right? If Louisiana, we have a lot of needs. The money doesn't follow the need. The money follows the count. So complete the census. We had a huge victory today with the judge. Basically, the Trump administration tried to shorten the time to complete the census by a month, right? Because they don't want us to get counted.
Right.
We had a victory in court that basically extends the time. And then on next year in different states across the country, the census will be used to draw legislative districts in Congress, in state legislatures across the country. My district, I sit in a district that is a product of the 2010 census because more Black people moved to Baton Rouge in that 10-year period from 2000 to 2010. So I'm a direct recipient of an adequate count. So count the census. The other thing that I'll tell you guys, we have to make sure that we are not just excited about the moment, but the movement. The policy changes that people are marching all across the world asking for are not going to happen in a protest, right? A protest is going to expose the problem. A protest is going to make people uncomfortable. But we need you showing up in state legislative houses across the country, school boards, city council chambers, writing the mayor, showing up, making people uncomfortable when decisions are made. Because I serve with people that are standing and watch and look outside the state capitol and then go and vote totally different way because those folks that are marching aren't marching inside and pushing for those changes. So, the protest is a necessary part, but we have to, be committed to making protests evolve into policy. So census and stay on board, protest to policy.
I'm here for it. Yeah, I don't even know how to sum that up. Y'all heard it. Do what y'all got to do. Yes, this is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like you answered every single question I had, which doesn't usually happen. But, but thank you. And I am looking forward to seeing what you do next. I think it's really important that people like you that are more relatable to people like us, you're not a 60-year-old white man that we can't necessarily establish a connection with. We're the same age. We come from the same type of situations. So I feel like you relate to our audience so they can see that people like us are doing work.
That's right. Look, and I appreciate you because, it's important that for you to make this a part of your platform is much needed. We have, folks in our generation, they're tuning into the YBF more than they're tuning into Huffington Post and CNN. So you making this a part of your platform, sister, I appreciate it. If nobody else tells you, I appreciate it because it is certainly needed. We have to be able to make sure we meet people where they are. And then also, for me, I always try to make this real plain, right? Politicians always want to talk above people and not to people. Right. We only talk to people in 4 years when it's time to ask you to vote. And then we go off and hide and forget who sent us here. So, for me, I'm constantly reminded that I enjoy the shade of a tree that I did not plant. So it's important for me to always just get out there and try to help pull people along.
For sure. Oh my God, speaking of meeting people where they're at, did you see, I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask you this question. But I'm gonna ask it. Did you see that ad with the Atlanta dancers?
Yes, I did.
How did you have to explain it? You done saw it 10 times or something?
I did. And so, some of my friends were like, man, why we always have to do that? I was like, man, that's helping people. Because they broke it down like the girl, you can't come here, making it rain if you got some charges, right? Like, the DA Look, I'm here for it, right? If 2 people go to vote because of that video, it worked.
I agree. I mean, they were talking about cash bail. Like, they really broke it down while being on the poll. I was like, ma'am.
That's right. Look,
thank you. Because I can't, that's a lot of multitasking.
Folks are going to listen to that as opposed to me. I'm in a suit sitting inside the state capitol telling people to go vote. That's moving people. I'm here for it.
Hilarious. Well, I love that you get it. I love that you're here for the Black people. I mean, you're here for everyone, but you really get it when Black people are involved in what we need and what we want. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's really all we have.
Look, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you once we get back to CBC. That's the one that just hurt me so much. I was like, okay, 2020, at least give me CBC. At least let me get that to see my people.
They're not even doing that. I don't even know if they're doing it virtually. I have no idea. But this
hopefully next year. Hopefully next year.
Oh, yeah. One day. Anyway, tell your mom.
If y'all have an OQ reunion, invite me.
Not an OQ reunion. I mean, are you inviting us to anything that y'all did with the Southern?
Look, if the world is back for Bayou Classic, we want you to come down. They announced that it's going to be in Shreveport, so that's a little different.
Wait, the Bayou Classic in Shreveport?
Yeah, it's something's going on with the Superdome, so it's still going to be a good time.
Listen, let me be very specific. The Southern Black Greeks who are single. Let me be specific.
Got you.
That's what y'all need to have us. OQ come in for, and everybody else that's Greek come in for.
There's no way that I would invite you guys down with my married friends. I would not.
It's not about that. I'm saying specifically, because you know how y'all men do. Oh, yeah, I got my homies, they coming over, but you don't say that they're all married, so then we're there just looking at each other like. Well,
not my good Kappa brothers.
Like I said, make it clear and make it specific.
I got
okay? All right. Thank you so much, Ted, for doing this.
Thank you.
It's amazing. And y'all already know the deal. Early voting is happening right now for mail-in ballots in Louisiana. Early voting in person starts when?
October 17th.
October 17th. You can still register to vote. We have deadlines on @YBF Politics. So make sure you meet those deadlines and read that and get it in your life. And obviously, if you don't do anything else, just show up to the polls on November 3rd if you're registered and vote. Okay? All right.
And vote all the way down the ballot.
All the way down the ballot. Not just for president, but so many other things that affect your everyday life. All right? So thank y'all so much for listening. Tune into theybf.com for all pop culture, celebrity news, what Tory Lanez said that was foolish, everything that you need to know. Go to theybf.com. Also follow us on at @theybf_daily, and of course at YBF Politics. And Ted, where can they find you?
At Edward Ted James, Twitter, Instagram. That's my email, edwardtedjames@gmail, tedjames.com.
And he keeps y'all very entertained. He does not hold his tongue, okay?
Not at all.
Thank y'all for watching and listening, and thank you, Ted, for doing this.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Bye.
To not have the type of conversation, that's why we agreed to the amendments. But since we are here, and since I didn't want to start it, but I ain't gonna run from it. So if we wanted to fully have a conversation, we shouldn't have watered down the damn bill. We had a commitment, and at this point, Blake, I did everything I said I was going to do. I watered down my bill. We watered down this one to prevent what I'm about to do right now. If we wanted to have a full conversation, we wouldn't have changed the wording of the bill. We all know that police officers get murdered, but you know what happens to the people that murder police officers? If they survive, they get arrested. You know what happens to police officers that kill people that look like me, Blake, Tony? They get a taxpayer-funded vacation. In Baton Rouge, Blaine Salamone got a taxpayer-funded vacation for over a year. Then when he got fired, you know what happened? The union and everybody could walk out. I don't care who walks out. Because I agreed that we weren't going to do this, didn't I, Blake? But we are here now. Tony in committee talked about the fact that as a police officer, he's had to fire some of his friends for pepper spraying somebody in handcuffs. Tony, I was pepper sprayed in handcuffs by a police officer, a white one. Doty in committee said, oh, if something happens to you and you see, and I'll intervene. And you said if something happened to me, you said that I would intervene. And Dodie, as a man, I probably want to intervene, but as a black man, I'm not intervening if a cop is doing something to you. Because while I love you, I love my daughter even more, and I got to go home to her. And I don't have a trust enough for me to intervene that I won't get shot and killed. We talk about the taser incident. Brian Fontenot, you talked about the taser incident of a guy in Atlanta. And you said that that was an adequate police shooting. They had another taser incident of a white man who took a taser from a cop. The cop ran away. The same person stole a police car. Did he get shot and killed? Hell no. Had it been black, he'd have been shot and killed. That's why we are here. That's why you see several people, white, black, young, old, marching over not just streets in Louisiana, streets all across the country. I will concede that there's an issue with police brutality, period. Way too often, when the victim of that brutality is an African American, that officer skates. And the first thing you see is when that black boy was suspended from the 5th grade, or when he got kicked off his football team. You don't see all the disciplinary actions of the officer. You didn't see after Alton Sterling got killed that Blaine Salamone, the person that trained him, sent an email that said he should have never been a police officer, said he was psychotic. But you know what happened? He walked on the scene, and I don't need water, and I appreciate the amendment that says several, because the first piece of legislation only mentioned George Floyd. Blake, we could have filled 5 pages up with names. 5 pages up. And you know what happened to Blaine Salamone? After he killed Alton Sterling, after one officer was being calm, within 5 seconds, he showed up and said, "BITCH, I'll kill you." And within less than a minute, he fulfilled his promise. Yusef Ahmadi, a police officer in Baton Rouge. 3 years ago, he killed a person. Since we going there, we going there. We're going to talk about it all. He killed a young black man. 2 years ago, he shot at another one. He said, "The man fired a shot at me, so I returned 2 rounds of fire." Everybody says, "Get body cameras." You know what happened to the body camera? Turned off. You know what happened to the front dash cam camera? Turned off. You know what happened to the rear camera? It was tilted down. And when this young African-American male was paraded across the screen in handcuffs, he said, "Check the tape, check the tape. I never had a gun." Thank God for that rear cam recording, because it didn't have any footage, but it had audio. All you heard was 2 shots. Yusef Ahmadi was a liar. You know what happened? He was fired, and guess what? He was fired after almost a year because our DA wouldn't prosecute him. Then he went to the police union and got his job back. Tony, you passed a bill last session that made it illegal to throw water on police officers. When stuff happens to police officers, we respond. When stuff happens to African-American males, we come up here and kumbaya, but we don't respond with action. Ladies and gentlemen, they might be words to you, and if you're offended by the words, some of us are offended by the actions. And Blake made a good point. Blake has children of color. And when you stood back there and you said, "I'm concerned about them," that hit me. And I'm concerned about them as well. And I know some of you guys are uncomfortable right now. This is supposed to be an uncomfortable conversation. But thank God that you have to deal with an uncomfortable conversation and not an uncomfortable life when lights are shining behind you. And if you think that this little stupid pen right here prevents me from feeling fear, it doesn't. Because as a member from this body, I get my haircut on Nicholson Drive. Many of you have passed by it. On a day, sunny day, 5 of us are standing outside. Police officers pull up. Nothing happened. Give me your identification. So I said, okay. I handed him my legislative card and a card from my law office. "Oh, we're sorry." And many of you are probably give them the benefit of the doubt. "Oh, something must have happened." No, it didn't. Because I called the precinct captain. They didn't have a call. 5 black men standing outside and 3 officers pulled up. And then one of them had the audacity to tell me, "I thought you were one of them." I am one of them. Just because I had this pen doesn't make me any different. And I want you guys to know that despite the title, as soon as I walk out of here, to many people, I'm just one of them.